Welcome to Basins and Beer with ESA Analytics. I'm Blue Spikes. Today I'm going to be talking about my old stomping grounds, the Anadarko Basin in Kansas. I grew up in Garden City, Kansas, so we're going to focus in on that area specifically. The beer I'm going to drink today is a Wibby Brewing Company beer. It's called Lightshine Helles Lager. It's 5.5% with IBU of 22. So it's an award winner, and it's brewed right up the road in Longmont, Colorado. So let's see what that tastes like. That is good, actually. It has a really cool can. Maybe the lighting's a little hard to read, but I would say it's crisp and clean as advertised. Let's get into talking about Basins. In order to use this application, if you saw the first video, you have a general primer on what ESA Analytics is. It's a dashboard, and you're looking at this dashboard right now. Once you get a subscription and log in, this is what it looks like. The first thing you want to do, I should back up real quick and open a map so you can get a sense of what the different regions are, because that's the first thing you want to do is figure out which region are you interested in. You can't load all the data at once. There are millions of wells, and it's just too much data to try to work with all at once. So in this case, we're going to zoom in here into southwestern Kansas, and the Anadarko Basin is two areas really. So it's in Oklahoma, the Texas Panhandle, and southwest Kansas. The Anadarko Shelf is this northern part of it, and that's what we're going to focus on today. So once you know the region, you find it in the list, and you load the basin. And it takes a couple seconds, but considering you're loading tens of thousands of wells, the process is actually real fast. When it's done loading, it doesn't look like much has happened, but you can then open the map and you can look at where the wells are. In this case, we haven't finished Oklahoma yet. We should have that finished by the end of the month, but we're focusing on the Kansas portion of this, so that's not going to be a problem today. As I pointed out in the previous video, if you don't color the dots by any property, you get this just kind of grayscale map. And the only real interesting thing you can do is sort of zoom in and just get a sense of, wow, look at how many wells there are. I mean, that really is an insane amount of wells in this region. Without Oklahoma so far, we have almost 70,000 wells already. But now if you color by, and I always like to color by product or by formation first, now you can start to see a real pattern start to emerge, and you can tell that, okay, up in this area you have one formation, you have a primary formation here, and then down in Texas you have a different formation. You can mouse over and see what each well name is and the API and what formation it is. In this case, the light green represents brown dolomite. This sort of army green is Chase Formation, and this purple is Mississippi. Another way to figure out those is to open up what is essentially our legend, this bar graph. It serves kind of a dual purpose of being both a legend, and it gives you information with regard to each of these different colors. So in this case, it's telling us how many wells there are that are Mississippi or Chase or Morrow. And as you move down, you have fewer and fewer of the wells from that formation. This upper graph here, in this case, it's automatically populated by BOE, a combination of oil and gas and producing length, how much of the well length is actually producing. And these are just pre-populated values. You can change each of these. You just click on the legend or the axis label, and it pulls up a menu, and you can choose any one of these properties and plot by that. Same thing on the y-axis, and the same thing down here if you want to change what the bar graph is depicting. But the purpose of what I want to show you today is a specific workflow, how you drill down to a specific township or county or section, because we had an inquiry today about Kansas, and I wanted to put together a workflow presentation kind of showing how you would drill down. This person was interested in what was our data coverage in a specific township. So I want to show everybody what it looks like to get to that information. So we've already done the first thing, which is just figuring out which basin we're going to be working in, getting that loaded, and then we can start to look at sort of refining what we're looking at. So I'm going to turn the well spots off because I know that I want to go into Garden City. Again, that's where I grew up. It's right here. I know that it's Finney County, but I can show you what the counties actually look like for those who aren't familiar with Kansas. It's this orange one in the middle here. So if I want to filter down to that county, I can choose Finney County, and I can apply the filter. Okay, so I've turned off my well spots, so to see them again, I turn them back on. I turn off the counties, and now you see the wells as they're distributed throughout this county. What the person today asked for was a specific township and range. So now I want to sort of drill down on that layer as well. So I'll turn off my well spots again, and this time I'll turn on my township layer. Okay, so I'm still sort of centered on what these different townships are, and I really want to get a sense of where I have the type of data that I'm most interested in. So I'll turn my well spots back on for a second, turn this off, and I can see that I have a lot of wells here, a lot of wells here. Those are probably the most interesting areas. So I'm really interested in areas where I might have logs. So I can filter down, choose logs, hit apply, and now my map's only going to show me wells that have logs. And at this point, if I size by, in this case TVD, it's just a depth measurement, it'll make the dots a little bigger and make things stand out a little better. And so obviously the deeper wells are bigger dots. So that's something I'm interested in. I want deeper wells with logs. So now I'm kind of zeroing in on, okay, this is going to be my area of interest because out of everywhere, this has kind of the tightest cluster of wells. So one thing I can do is I can mouse over this, I can focus on it, I can then, right, actually it's not, we don't call that focus, we call that just highlighting it. And that's going to show me in the table that well. So it's jumped right to that well, so that's helpful. I can now select that well. So that's going to move this well to the top of my table. Sorry, gotta remember that I'm working on two different screens here. So I select the well, that's going to move it to the top of the table, and that's all it's really going to do at this point. And I can start to select other wells in the area. One way to do that is to use the lasso tool, and for example I can lasso all the surrounding wells. So that will now select all those wells and push them to the top of my table, which is very useful. Okay, so now they're all here in the table, they're all pushed to the top, and I can close this so I get a little bit more of my table that I can see. And I'm interested in looking at the logs. So I can see that obviously all these wells have logs because we already filtered down to the ones with logs. And I want the deepest ones because they tend to have the most interesting log sets. So all of these are selected, and you can see these already have the logs checked. So these 5 already are going to be loaded in, and I think that's going to be actually a good grouping. So it's already picked that for me based on depth, and I kind of wanted to show you that this application can be very manual, where you're slowly telling it exactly what you want, or you can let it do some of the thinking for you and automate some of this. And so by default, it automates a lot of it. If you want to be more specific and select certain wells, you just turn off the wells that it automatically selected and select the ones you want. But for kind of a quick view, this is ideal. So what I'm going to do now is go to my log viewer, and I'll get rid of the map so I have a little bit more of the vertical exaggeration on these logs. So you can see there are different depth ranges for these logs, but you can see they're already registered based on TVD subsea, so they're already lined up. And these wells aren't right next door to one another, but they're pretty close. So let's really focus on this deeper section and blow that up. Okay, so I think I got that a little out of frame. So you can see the log data, you can see the tops, you can see how continuous the tops are. I mean, you can learn a lot from this. So if your goal was to drill down on an area and get to the log set, that's all you have to do. You're already there. And then you can start evaluating the information from there. So I'll close this because I want to show another feature, because at this point we have a table of data already filtered down, and I want to know, can I see anything else with this? Or like, how much work does it take to get to another subset of wells that I want to view? And in this case, I want to look at production on this subset of wells. So I load that up, and just like that, I have production on this particular subset of wells. So, sorry, what I meant to do was open the production, and now I want to get rid of the table, because this is kind of how it works. You open one thing and it groups it together, and then you can close one thing, and now you get the entire plot on one graph. So if I want to further drill down on a subset of wells for another purpose, by the way, if you want to change to date instead of this cumulative production view, you can do that. Again, you learn that wells come online and they decline, and they might get a little bump later, like you see here. That's probably from completions from other wells helping to boost production during that time period. Just like you see here, this one came online, that started to drop, then it boosted. So you probably had a bunch of wells coming online at this time that really helped the production there. But anyway, this is what oil and gas professionals are looking for, is this type of tool. You get down to the data quick, and you can start evaluating right away. Now, I'm trying to move fast because I don't want to get too in the weeds on any of this. I just want to show sort of how this application works, how quick it is to get to a particular set of wells. So the last thing I want to show is, if you focus on a well, you're automatically telling the application to find the surrounding wells, and then when I look at it in the subsurface view, show me all those wells. So I focus on that well. Again, I'm not being real specific. I don't know exactly how this is going to look, but this is what I get. So in this case, get rid of the table, so now I can look at the full thing, and this is my subsurface view of that particular well and all of the surrounding wells. And if I want to, I can turn on grids, so you can see how different formations intersect with these well bores. So, hopefully you can see how quick and easy you can get to this type of data. And I can tell you, I grew up in Kansas, but I haven't really worked that area as an oil and gas professional. This is one of my first times even looking at this. But it was just that easy to get in and start evaluating and at least illustrating, what's going on in this particular basin. So I'm going to shut that down and say cheers until next time.